I am a servant in Pharaoh's house, no name, just a servant. One day, a man called Abram came to seek refuge in our country because they were experiencing famine. He came with his beautiful wife, who he said was his sister. She was so beautiful that my master Pharaoh brought her to the palace and in return gave a lot of his wealth to the man Abram. Part of what he gave Abram was male and female servants. I was part of the female servants that were offered as a gift to Abram. My master Pharaoh then found out that Abram was the husband to Sarai, the beautiful woman who he had brought to the palace. The God of this man Abram afflicted Pharaoh with great plagues because of taking Sarai from Abram. This is how Pharaoh found out, and after lamenting to Abram, he sent us all away and gave men orders concerning him and all he had. So we had to go. My home was Egypt, but I had to leave home to serve my new master Abram. I became a servant to his wife Sarai. We all moved from Egypt to Negev, then to Bethel, then to Oak of Mamre at Hebron. I became part of this family that was very devoted to worshiping their God. My master Abram led in worshiping God and built altars wherever they worshipped God. There was one thing that my master ached for. It was a child. This family was so wealthy, but they had no child, one that would become their heir. So one day, Sarai asked her husband Abram to sleep with me so that I conceive and bear a child for them. Sarai was barren. I slept with my master and I conceived. I got pregnant by the master. Sarai, my mistress, had given me to the embrace of her husband. I became so full of myself. I became super proud. I had slept with the master and now I had a child on the way for him. I started viewing my mistress Sarai as a worthless woman and started to treat her with a lot of contempt. I forgot my place in the home. I forgot my place as a servant. I forgot my position in the background to be heard but not seen. And in my foolishness, I belittled the mistress of the household that I was in as a servant. What followed my folly was that my mistress Sarai turned against me and dealt with me so harshly that I fled from her and ran away. I was on the way to Shur, where the angel of the Lord found me. I was a spring of water in the wilderness. There was a spring of water in the wilderness where I was. The angel asked me where I was coming from and where I was headed. I told him that I was fleeing from my mistress Sarai. The angel of the Lord told me to return to my mistress Sarai and submit to her in humility. Though I was a nobody and I had acted so unkindly and foolishly, I received an amazing blessing from the Lord. The blessing that was that I would have many descendants, which could not be numbered. He also told me that I was carrying a son and that his name would be Ishmael. This name meant that God had seen my affliction. Something of concern that the Lord mentioned was about his future. My son would be a wild donkey of a man. His hand would be against everyone, and everyone's hand would be against him. He would also dwell over and against all his kinsmen. What hard statements filled with blessings this far. I called the name of the Lord, who spoke to me that he was God who sees me. I said this because I had now truly seen the Lord who looked after me. After all this, I went back to my mistress, Sarah, and submitted to him as the angel of the Lord commanded me. God did bless me with a son when his father, my master Abraham, was 86 years old. My master called his name Ishmael. 13 years later, God did visit my mistress Sarah, and by a miracle, she gave birth to a boy. One day, they held a celebration because their son was weaned. On this day, my son laughed at the mistress boy. It was in such a way that my mistress Sarah commanded that I be thrown out of her home. She asked that I, a slave woman, and my son be cast out. She also said that her son would never be heirs with my son. On one early morning, my master Abraham put on my shoulder bread and a skin of water. My son and I were sent away. We left and started wandering in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, I put my child under one of the bushes. I went and sat opposite him a good way off. This was about the distance of a bow shot. I did not want to watch him die. I raised my voice and I cried. I may have been a slave, but to God I was his precious child. God heard my son crying, not my cry. Of course, he did hear me, but what caught his attention was my son's cry. And then I heard the voice of the angel of God call out my name, Hagar. Yes, my name is Hagar. He asked me what was troubling me. He also told me that God heard the voice of my son from where I had left him to die. The angel of God commanded me to go lift my son up and hold him fast with my hands, because God would make him into a great nation. God also opened my eyes, and I saw a well of water. This was God's miraculous power. I filled the skin with water and gave my son to drink, and he survived. He did not die as I was expecting. My name is a slave woman, that woman, a servant. Most times, these references made me feel I did not exist. I had no rights. I thank you, God, because you see me through very different eyes. You see me as Hagar. Because of God, my name is Hagar. Amazingly, my son grew up and lived in the wilderness and became so good at shooting with bows and arrows. And I got him a wife from our homeland, Egypt. My name is Hagar, a child of God. Thank you so much. That's the story of Hagar. Let's see who's going to be next. Thank God that you're able to see how he sees us. I've noticed that in the conversations, there's like a lot of action and talk from our side as women, but on God's side, it's a few words here, a few words there, and they are so impactful. So God bless you as you continue hearing that one, those two words, those three words, those many or few words from God. And I pray that you may know and see and look at yourself now from how God sees, how God knows, how God sees and views you and views me for God's glory. God bless you so much.